Welcome to another edition of Whiskey, Games, and Nerd Stuff. Today's whiskey is HatoZaki Finest Whiskey. And today's nerd stuff is something that I was able to find in a tote in the storage. So let me go ahead and move the whiskey over. Go ahead and show the back of the bottle. And a close-up on the front of the bottle. Really like the labeling on that. I really think that's cool. They say don't judge a book by its cover, but I often have bought whiskeys that I am not familiar with just by how the bottle looks. Let me go ahead and take a sip. Oh, that smell. That smells so good. Oh, holy crap, that was good. That is some good whiskey. Alright, so today's nerd stuff is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while. It's a card game that I really enjoyed playing. This is from, I think it's from 2000, if I recall correctly. Yep, 2000. So Age of Empires was a computer game that was very popular, I want to say late 90s, early 2000s. And it was a lot of fun. And then they came out with a card game, which I really enjoyed playing. I knew a couple of people that really enjoyed playing it. It was definitely more involved and steeper learning curve than things like Magic the Gathering was at the time or other games. But what was cool about it is you can actually play just like you would in the computer game. And it's pretty faithful to how the computer game was. So what you would do is, this particular set is the Britons. And you would start with, you'd see here's what they would start with. So it would tell you what they could do, the turn sequence. It would have the different things that were going on. And then it would tell you, if you're playing with the Britons, what you would start with. So, for example, the Britons would start with a certain number of tokens, the town centers, the villagers, etc. So they would have this. And then you would get a nice little extensive rule book. And this rule book was pretty in-depth. There was a lot of stuff to cover. And this is one where you would have a turn sequence, which is pretty decent and extensive. You can see where I've got notes in there on this particular rule book, where stuff that we had to kind of remember to do. So when I go through this old rule book, I'm seeing so many. You can see where we had to underline things. It was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed this game. The learning curve was pretty steep. And I went all in on this game and bought a lot of sealed product. Not like Rudy sealed product, but I went in and I've got a lot of sealed product still, mainly because I really enjoyed the game. So I had a lot of fun with it. Thought it would pick up and be a lot more popular than it was. And then it just wasn't one of those things that didn't. So the cards are pretty cool. The front of the cards, or the back of the cards, I should say. And the front of the cards are going to be just like they were with the game. So you would have different things where you would have events, and it would tell you what the events were. And each event would cost a certain amount of resources. So you can see some of the events. And then you would have the little upgrades you can do, like light cavalry would be an upgrade. A few more event cards. Let me see if I can find some non-event cards in here. And then what would be cool is you would actually have to get the resources to build the buildings just like you would do in the game. So here would be the castle. So in the castle, you needed 10 workers, and then I'm trying to remember what the icons were. It's been a long time since I played this game. But you would need things to do the castle, and then they would also have the different ages. So you'd have, like the feudal age would tell you what you can build in that stage. You would have the dark, so you'd start with your dark age, then you'd go to your feudal age, and then they would have the castle age, and each age would give you different things. And then you'd have the individual armies you would pick. So you'd have your skirmisher, then you'd have your spearmen, your man-at-arms, town watch, archer, and of course you'd have a plethora of events. So there was an extensive list in here. I mean, you got stone walls that you can build. You've got a stable that you could build, and a market you would build. And then what would happen is, and then you'd have technology that you would build, that you create, like a wheelbarrow or scale mill armor or a loom. So what would happen is you would set up your cards, and you would have things like it would just basically be like the game was, the computer game was. So you would have your markets, you would have your stables, you would have the resources, you would have to go and mine things, and then you would need a certain amount of resources to build a certain building. Once you have that certain building, you could then build, you'd need to have horsemen, you'd need a stable. To have the stable, you'd have to have that technology, and it would go through in detail everything you needed. And you could see the different icons. So every card had a different icon on it. And as you can tell, just from that first glance, there was a lot of stuff in there. And just looking at the cards, here was kind of the typical game setup of how you would have things. So you would have your technology upgrades, your civilization cards, your village area, your no man's land, where your army was, your no man's land. And this was just one of those things where, again, in this turn sequence, it would have things, in your collection upkeep, collect resources and pay any upkeep you have in your cards. Turn sequence 2, construction. Play building relics and wonders and begin research on technologies, upgrades, and age advancement. Turn sequence 3, movement. Move your unit cards. Turn sequence 4, attack declaration. Units declare targets for their attack. Turn sequence 5, attack resolution. Turn sequence 6, enlistment, purchase new units. Turn sequence 7, discard and draw cards. Turn sequence 8, allocation. So what would happen is each turn sequence would take quite a while. And this game, we played it. Me and a friend would play this every weekend. And these games, it was like playing Risk, in a good way. You could sit and you get a good game of Risk that'll last you a whole night. We had a lot of fun with this, but it is a steep learning curve game. And what was awesome about this is all the different, you'd have the Britons, the Romans, there was, God, you name it. I think there was a good 10, 15 different starting points that you could be, just like you would in the game. But I really enjoyed this game. It was a lot of fun. I happened to have found a couple of these boxes. I've got a whole tote full of just sealed sealed starter boxes with all the races and the civilizations and different stuff. And then I've got the booster boxes and stuff. I really enjoyed this game. Would love to hear if anybody else even remembers this game. Is this a game that anybody even knew existed? Did you play it? What are your thoughts on it? And I'm curious to see how many people would love to see this game kind of come back with maybe some more simplified mechanics. The other thing I'd like to see is who has tried this. This is pretty damn good. I really enjoyed this, a lot more than I thought I would. My favorite Japanese whiskey has been the Hibiki, but I really enjoyed this. I do appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to these videos. Please feel free to like, subscribe, make comments. Really would appreciate if anybody subscribed to this. I know now why everybody says do the subscribe things. I think it was, the last time I looked, it was 86% of the people who watch my videos didn't subscribe. And I get it, but I really would appreciate it. It's kind of one of those things where I'll be honest, it's kind of cool when people watch these, and it's one of those things when you have a YouTube channel, when you get a new subscriber, it kind of makes you feel good. So, it's corny, I know, but I do appreciate it. And once again, I do appreciate everybody taking the time to watch these videos. If you'd like to see more content about some of the dead art TCGs, would love to let me know. If the game's out there, I've got it somewhere in one of my storage units. But until next time, cheers.